Hello and welcome back to the Cheltenham Festival head-to-head series. This is the final episode. It's quite an emotional week for us. We both decided to stick shirts on for the event. It's going to be hopefully a very interesting episode. How are you doing, Dan? How are you feeling about this momentous occasion?
I know it's emotional times. We started this 10 weeks ago,
Yeah,
early January sometime. Yeah, it seems a long time ago now. I'm somewhat relieved to get to the end of it, so I don't embarrass myself further. But I mean, I hope the viewers have enjoyed it, and hopefully we have a couple more tips today each, and hopefully they provide good value.
So this episode, we've got questions from the top, and from the questions, we're going to follow into our book of bets, and then we're going to be giving you two selections plus a little fancy bet for the week as well. We'll put that one up at the end, so that'll be very interesting for you guys to stay tuned for that. First question comes from Adam Mills, or GG Banker, and he said, now that the Cheveley Park horses have moved, does that put you off backing them for the festival? Obviously, it's not the ideal circumstances for them. Is this an angle you're going to be looking to take going into the festival?
So I did a bit of digging on some stats that I could find. So since 2003, 190 horses ran at Cheltenham on their first start for a new trainer. Of those, 6 won and a further 13 placed for an actual over expected figure of 0.79. So below what you'd expect. But with those figures comes a very wide range of circumstances across the runners. Like there's all sorts in there. So of the winners, the Fox Hunters winner was in there twice, the Cross Country once, the Kim Muir once. You had the Fred Winter and the Coral Cup, and those latter two cases were with Diego de Charmel and Petit Soir, who came over from France and had their first run in England. So there are so many unique circumstances in that table of runners that it's not really viable to make a conclusion on what the impact of the Cheveley Park runners is going to be based on those figures. But with 2 weeks to go to Cheltenham, most of the work would have been done. Probably only a couple final pieces of work would have been needed, but fitness probably would have been largely there. And part of what makes those horses Cheltenham contenders is how they've been campaigned thus far anyway. So a lot of the work is done. Obviously, you're going to have concerns about how they settle into new regimes, new gallops, feed, hay, the staff, like work riders. There's so many different elements, and that's all going to affect different horses differently. Like they're all individuals. Some will be more nervous than others, and some will be more relaxed. So it's very hard to tell without knowing the horse and how they react. But you've also got to bear in mind that these horses would have been traveling to Cheltenham anyway, where they would have experienced new surroundings again. So perhaps its relevance might be overplayed. I mean, you're dealing with Henry de Bromhead and Willie Mullins. Like, it's not like they've gone to you and me and we've been tasked, right, get Envoy to the marsh. Like, well, these guys know what they're doing.
Yeah.
So I think it might be overstated. It's an interesting one, and it might provide some interesting stats at the end, but I wouldn't be taking it as a massive negative.
I was going to say, I wouldn't read into those stats too much because, I mean, I imagine most stable moves would be due to a horse underperforming or having an issue. These are moved not off the horse's account, but off of something in the background. I could see a lot of people, myself, using this as a negative, to further negative horses, if that makes sense. So if they're a fancy appreciate it, they'll be like, oh, well, you can't, Bally Adams out of the equation because he's now moved yards. This is a further reason to back appreciate it. But I imagine those same people won't be using the same excuse to take on MVLN. I wouldn't think it'd be too much of a huge deal this year. As you said, these are going to 2 top yards. I imagine they'll be doing everything in their power to make sure that it's as seamless as a transition as possible. You say hay and feed. Are these things that the trainers could say, all right, we'll buy the same hay and feed for this short period of time, and maybe we'll see a change in them next year, and who knows, maybe even a positive move next year. They might improve for the move. Obviously very unlikely with a horse like MVLN, but anything can happen. So yeah, I wouldn't be buying into it too much myself. I was at first, but the more I've sort of thought about it, the more I don't think it's that important. The next question comes from AddyB123. It's a lovely Twitter handle. He said, what's your biggest lay of the week? Nothing over 5s. Mine, I mean, there's a lot of short priced horses here, and unfortunately, the way I bet, I fancy them all.
Exactly. Yeah, I was going to say, is this question possible for you?
So I haven't gone for a real short one. But Gallard de Menil in the Ballymore, I'd probably lay him, maybe even lay him for a place. I think that both Bob Ollinger and Brave Man's Game have achieved more than him in the market, and I think they're speedier horses that will suit him. I think he's actually most probably more of an Albert Bartlett type than a Ballymore type. So yeah, I think he's a false favourite. I'd be definitely looking to lay him. Who would your lay of the week be?
I'd go with Kilcrut. I mean, look, there's no denying how impressive he was at Dublin Race Festival, right? Like, it was visually stunning. But obviously, you look at it deeper, the race fell apart, or you see that by the finishing speeds, etc. And it's about 6-4 now. There are enough concerns for me to want to lay him. I think Patrick Mullins stated that he takes less work than any other horse in the yard, and he struggles to hold his condition. So, given the emphatic nature of that win, add to that travelling, I'm just concerned whether that race would have left a mark on him, and if they'll be able to keep him in tip-top condition for Cheltenham. But they're masters of getting horses to Cheltenham fit and firing. But the way he described the horse, he sounds a bit delicate to get right. So that would concern me. And I think he just might be running into a bit of a monster in Sir Gerhard. And we know that the Elliott Yard, they've had some top-class bumper horses there this season, like Sir Hollow Games, Free Stripe Life, Jerry Colombe, and Sir Gerhard's always been thought as the one amongst them. So I think he would be who I'd be siding with at this stage, and I think Kilcrut's short enough at 6-4 to take him on. I think Sir Gerhard will go off favourite.
I was about to ask you that. Do you reckon they'll flip-flop in the market? I think so. Obviously, they're going to be doing bits and bobs and work against each other. Willie Mullins have a right idea of who's the better one. Ashley B. West 123 is the next question, and he wants us to give him a lucky 15 for the festival. Now, I imagine, knowing the way that you bet, you've got four good price horses. So I've gone for some shorter price horses. If you take it away with, I imagine what's going to be an each way lucky 15.
Yeah, it's each way. They're not as big as prices as you might imagine, but I went with three that I think are very solid and should place at the worst, and one at a bigger price, which is a bit more of a wild card. So the Boss's Oscar in the Potemps at 8, Aplutard in the Gold Cup at 6-1. Happy Go Lucky in the Ultima at 6-1, and then Paint the Dream in the plated 25s is the wild card in there. So I mean, if you get a few places and a win out of that, I'm in happy days.
The lucky 15 for me, Champion Hurdle, Epatante. I think she's a ridiculous price now. If I'm honest with you, I can't believe with some firms she's even third favourite behind Goshen. It's going to be between the mares. So whether she wins or not, she just shouldn't be that price. Potemps final, I'll be taking you on with Champagne Platinum, another at the top of the market. Obviously, if you watched earlier on in this series, 25-1, I sort of gave him a mention. I think he's really well handicapped. The plan all season has been to get him qualified for this race. So yeah, I'm really happy with the position with him. Paisley Park, another of my selections, 100-30. I'm really confident that he can confirm places with Time Hill. I think also the race, the way it's run, is going to really suit him. And the last one is for the Mares Chase, and that's Ellie Mae. I think she's got outstanding claims, around 7-4, most probably one of the most solid favourites of the week. So that's 3 JP horses. That's normally a positive sign. £1 a line, so £15 stake. That would return £988. So feel free to tip me if that one comes in. The last question is from Jake Price.
They won't do that.
Yeah, I know they won't. It's always worth asking. The last question's from Jake Price Racing, a good friend to this show. He made the lovely banner that's surrounding us right now. He's got a 2-part question. The first one is actually a question we've received a few times, which is how do we think we fare up against each other if we had to price each other in this head-to-head series? But we'll come back to that in 2 seconds when we go through our books. Question 2 was, what am I going to do if Epatante loses? Well, I don't have to worry because she's not going to lose.
Oh, Jesus.
But if she was going to lose, I'll duck for cover because I've rattled a few feathers. I'll definitely be steering clear of Twitter, and I must be upset for quite a few days afterwards. It might actually ruin my festival.
I love the idea that your festival's going to be over for like race 4. That's it. It's all over. The dream's finished, and like I can imagine, literally, you probably won't even bother watching the others. Just ducking for cover, deleting Twitter accounts. It's I can't wait when Honeysuckle beats her. It's going to be so funny.
All these videos will just be privated. No one will come back to. I'll give up. So let's get back to your other questions. How would we price each other up? So let's go through our books. What I'll do on screen right now is I'll put a little clip up of the very high-tech system that we've got to track these bets, which is just a Google Sheets. I'm going to make an excuse off the top of the bat. I've decided I've decided to go up against a Racing TV Tipstar finalist. He possibly could have won. He was very, very close. I'm just a kid in my bedroom. So don't beat me up too much. Now, of course, we are both definitely going to have biased views going into this. We picked these horses. We obviously fancy them. I will say that I think you're the favourite and you clearly have the better value bets. But I'm quite happy the horses I've backed. And I don't think you're the nailed-on favourite that one guy in the comment section keeps telling me that you are. Apparently,
1 to 66.
1 to 66 shot.
To be fair, I'd be laying me at that price, to be quite honest. I wish I was that short, bloody hell. That would be, I'd be laughing all the way to the bank. But yeah, I don't think it's quite that biased.
Do you have your bets to hand, or do you want me to read yours out for you?
No, I do. Well, let's go through the bad ones first. Let's get them out of the way. Obviously, we know what happened with Cocoa Beach. We've been over it too many times. Still think it was a good pick. Gordon didn't read the script. Honey Macapony, that was a bad pick. That's a non-runner, so that's lost. Fury Road is still 20s. It's probably unlikely he goes. So again, that one I've already pretty much written off. And Janadil was a non-runner, but that was money back, so a point back on that one. So that's 4 of the 9 I'd say are down. Fury Road is a maybe still, but of the others, the other 5, like we've got some decent tickets there. Like Clat de Rear was obviously 33 to 1. Some would have got the 40s when he drifted immediately. He's now 10 to 1, the widely perceived second favourite. Obviously, Monkfish is there, but not much you can do about that. And I'd be very disappointed if he doesn't place. I write 25s, that's now 12 to 1, so that's halved in price. Riviere de Tel was 20s, now into 8s, more than halved in price. Conflated was given at 14s, is now 10 to 1. So a few points there. And Gentleman to Me last week was an absolute steamer in the days after this video came up. Like he was 12 to 1 on the video. He's now 11 to 2 favourite. So across them, there's some decent tickets in there. Obviously, the thing is with tipping up big prices, you're going to get this kind of variance. But with 5 of the 9 looking quite solid, I mean, I'd give myself a 6 out of 10 for effort so far. It's not bad.
You requested that we filmed last week's episode a couple of days beforehand because you were worried about the handicap weights, and I really wish I denied you because you wouldn't have stuck Gentleman to Me up if he was 5 to 1, would you?
It could have been better if I asked you to do it a couple of days earlier and I got the 20s that he was 2 days before. That would have been sweeter. And I said on the video, the 20s he's the bet of the week.
Yeah,
I'll take the 12s.
For myself, I had St. Calvados, who I do believe will go close in the Ryanair, providing he goes that way. Quilixios, I think you'll see him staying up the hill, providing he doesn't get tapped for toe. I would imagine he could pick up a place. Now, Epatone, Paisley Park and Galvin are 3 of my more confident bets going into the festival. I'm a little bit nervy with the uncertainty surrounding Royal Pagay at the moment because the exchanges have spoken and they said that he is definitely going to the National Hunt Chase. And that makes me a little bit uneasy on Galvin. And I think Put the Kettle On is nailed on for a place in my eyes. If we had to stick odds on it, you're most probably a 4 to 9 shot, aren't you? Something like that.
I was thinking 2 to 5. Yeah. I mean, I only need 1 really, and I've pretty much won. Like realistically, if one of them wins, I think I'm in. Like that's realistically, given the prices that some of them are. And if I write Riviere de Tel or a Clat de Rear win, you're finished, really, aren't you?
I'm banking on none of them winning.
Well, you clearly
scooping the pot. So yeah, it's an interesting book of bets, and do you know what? It's actually been a lot of fun to make these. So whether I lose or not, I've at least enjoyed myself.
The sentence of a loser right there.
I sounded so enthusiastic while saying it. Selections this week. Let's dive straight into them. I'll let you take away with your first selection.
Okay, yeah. So we got first of 2 from me this week. So going for the Grand Annual and Ontheslopes at 20 to 1, I think is a massive price at the moment. While Chosen Mate was a novice winner of this race last year, it was the first since 2013 as a novice to win. And you look back in more recent renewals, it's actually the second season chasers that dominated. They had 5 successive wins from 2014 to 2018. I think that's indicative of the need to have some experience in this race, like a race of this nature. It helps if they're not fully exposed as well, but you do need some street smarts, and Ontheslopes certainly has that. I just think he's a really big price at the moment, and it's worth bearing in mind that he was the Ante-post favourite for this race last season. He was the one everyone wanted to be on. I think he was on a mark of 136, and he just couldn't get in because it was an unusually high ceiling last year. I think 140 was needed to get in, which was quite abnormal. So he ended up going to Kempton instead, where he pulverised Return Ticket, who has since improved a stone since that run. So that form from later in the season worked out quite well. And he came into this year with a lot of people expecting quite good things of him. I think that a lot of people thought he'd land a big handicap. He was Nick Luck's horse to follow for the season. And I think he's a very good judge. So it hasn't quite gone to plan, which is a bit of an issue. He shaped as if in need of the run on his first start of the season when he was fifth behind Rouge Vif in the Cheltenham Handicap. And that led to him being very well back next time out for another handicap at Cheltenham in November. But again, he was a bit disappointing in fifth. But it's too soon to completely give up on him. And he did have a wind operation literally a couple of days after that second run. So clearly they found an issue. Tom Cannon reported that he heard a noise. So he went for that wind op where he was cauterized, lasered and hobdayed. It's a full-on procedure he had. So it wasn't like it was one of those, I hope it works miracle wind ops. Like it clearly they discovered there was something wrong. So that bodes well for the chances of improving. And it's interesting to note that 4 of the last 10 winners of the Grand Annual ran in either of those 2 Cheltenham handicaps that he could test earlier in the season. So obviously they tend to run in these types of races quite often and get experience at Cheltenham. So that bodes well for his chances. He made his reappearance after his wind up in a jumpers bumper at the start of February. You know my thoughts on those races. Like in terms of form, they're not worth the paper they're written on. But it was a spin round to shake off the cobwebs. So in that sense, the fact he was back out to be seen on a track is a positive. And the Grand Annual is his only entry at present. And this may well have been the plan for some time, given how he's been campaigned. And he's been dropped £3 for those earlier runs in the season. So he's now is back on a mark 140, which should guarantee him a run, and I think is well within his range. Perhaps something that hasn't been discussed as much as it should have in terms of the Grand Annual is the fact that it's on the old course this year instead of the new course, which in my mind makes tactics even more essential. Like you really want to be handy in a race of this nature anyway, because of the chaos that can go in behind. But especially on the sharper old course, it's really crucial to be prominent, if not front running. And Ontheslopes is a very good jumper and often goes from the front. So tactically, I can see this race suiting. And it wouldn't surprise me if they stick some first-time headgear on him as well. Like it seems the kind of move that I could see on this kind of horse, to the extent where he's banging on the door and has done for some time. Maybe there's just one further edge you can give him to get him over the line, and maybe give him some cheek pieces. And first-time headgear in Cheltenham handicaps has generally been quite a positive thing. He's still only a 7-year-old. He's only had 9 starts with offences. He isn't fully exposed. I think he's threatened to land a big handicap for some time, and I'm hoping this will be it.
I remember reading a stat, and don't quote me completely on this. I think it was something along the lines of like the last 10 winners of the Grand Annual didn't win a race that season before running in the Grand Annual, and that writes off about the top 5 in the market. Didn't win a handicap, was it?
Yeah, that's the crucial one. They can win novices. Like Chosen Mate last year won a novice on his last start and then hacked up. But yeah, handicap chase winners have a dreadful record, which I guess is a lot of people's argument for Enthucas being quite good. And I have a decent opinion of him. He got handicap experience without winning. So those kind of things are good. But you don't want to be winning a handicap before this, because a lot are just laid out for it.
All right, my selection. I'm going to be tackling you with the Ultima. Obviously, your selection is Ira, and you've been quite sweet on him on this show. You've got me to believe that Lieutenant Rocco might not go here and might go towards the RSA. And I can sort of see that, because that race is bound to cut up, and small owners might think we could nick a place in a race like that. So yeah, I can see him possibly diverting and going elsewhere. Obviously, you've got another horse who's been absolutely smashed in the market in Happy Go Lucky. He's now become way too short for me to back him, if I'm honest with you. I was then the next horse I looked at. Now, I think he's nailed on for a place. I think you're right there, but I think he's definitely bound to bump into 1 or 2 well-handicapped horses, because that's just how he's ran all season. Also, Clondor Castle, who's currently topping the weights, I believe that horse is going to be going to Aintree to try his hand in a graded contest, which would push right to the top of the weights in this race. And I think you could just see him finding it a little bit too much. I've landed on the Nick Williams trained one for the team. My only issue with him is that he hasn't raced around Cheltenham, and that is a huge issue because horses you run in the Ultima and go on to win tend to have run plenty times around Cheltenham. But he has got some really solid form to his name. He placed behind McFabulous in the Persian War on the first start of the season. Now McFabulous is going to go to the Grade 1 Aintree hurdle. He then chased home Next Destination 2 starts afterwards because he fell on his chasing debut, I believe. Chased home Next Destination. And now Next Destination is going to be your third favourite in the RSA and won on his next start. So that form's looking quite good. He didn't look in love with the Kempton track. And then I'm not completely shocked that he didn't like the soft ground in the Sky Bet Chase because all of his best form has come on good ground. Tom Scudamore will likely take the ride, and I'm quite keen on that because he's won the race a fair few times. And Nick Williams also does really target this race. I was looking at how he's done. He had a gut-wrenching second in the 2009 renewal as Wichita Lineman caught him on the line, caught one of his runners on the line. He had no runner in 2010. He then had the third in 2011. No runners again until 2019 when winning the race with Kustar Savola. And then he tried to back up the performance next year with Kustar Savola, who unfortunately was pulled up. So since 2009, he's had 2 places and a winner from four selections and from 4 runners. So I think he's definitely a trainer to keep note of going into the Ultima. This horse is currently 12-1 with 5 places, non-runner, no bet. So I think that is a very good chance of running a good race.
Yeah, I think if you recall, when we did the preview for the Corto Star, I brought this horse up and said he could well be an Ultima horse. And that was a while ago, obviously just based on the fact that his trainer, as you mentioned, does target this race and do quite well. You've already mentioned the major pitfall that I have surrounding him is the lack of Cheltenham form, which again is a big pointer to this race often. It's a tough one. I can definitely see it. There are others I fancy more than him. 12-1, maybe he's found his price. I'd say, is he going to shorten drastically from that?
No,
maybe not. I think maybe he goes 10s, 9s at the shortest, I'd say, especially if the likes of Lieutenant Rocco do turn up, then I think he'll go off about the same price he is. So in terms of value hunting, if I'm going to be specific, then maybe his price has already gone. But yeah, I can see it. If the ground is good, he's got a decent handicap in him. Obviously, he was a bit disappointing at Doncaster last time, but maybe it's a soft ground. But I've been looking at the forecast this week, mate. There's a fair bit of rain around, you know. You could get it on the softer side for day one. Obviously, I know they'll call it good to soft, but we all know that that's just it's just put there to make it look pretty. But looking at the forecast as of recently, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, fair bit of rain forecast.
Well, I'm hoping that it's going to be good to firm before that rain comes in.
Firm in places.
I just felt like his race ended too early for that to have been his true running. It was by far his worst performance of the season, so I'm hopeful that it was just a blip. Your second selection, Dan.
Yep, this is probably the hardest race of the week in my book. Anyway, we're going back for the Coral Cup after I was very sweet on Janadil and he didn't even bother to be entered, so that was a bit of a kick. But we're going back in. And the one I'm going with is Botox Has at 20-1, which I think is a pretty fair price. Now, one of my golden rules generally across the jump season is avoid last season's juveniles in open company, just because they tend to struggle to make the grade. But I'm breaking that rule because I think there's a few reasons to here. Firstly, he wasn't overly tried as a juvenile. He only had 3 runs. They were all before the turn of the year. And he also didn't run in the Triumph, which I can also think takes a bit out of horses the year after. So he was minded a bit in his first campaign. He's acquitted himself well in open company thus far. It looks like a horse who's going to progress just to beyond a decent juvenile as well. And interestingly, 5-year-olds actually have quite a good record in this race, which isn't often said of many races at Cheltenham. In the last 3 renewals haven't been great, but if you look from 2006 to 2017, there were 61 5-year-olds that lined up. So in those 12 renewals, 4 of the winners were 5-year-olds, and a further 18 finished in the first 5 from a representation of just 19%. So that's drastically overperforming against their representation. So looking more at the Coral Cup, 9 of the last 11 winners had run at Cheltenham previously, and 4 of those had winning form. And Botox his course record is pretty phenomenal, really. A record of 2-1-1, and the defeat came to All Mankind last season. So no shame in that. And then he reversed the form of that rival in the Masterton Hurdle at the start of this year. So clearly he gets on well with this track, and that can only be a positive for his chances. And the form of that race obviously has worked out quite well, with All Mankind going on to be a top novice chaser. He's been hardly tried in decent handicap since. He was fourth in a slightly run Jerry Filden, which I don't think would have suited, because I think this horse is in need of further these days. And then he was down the field in a couple of grade 3 handicaps to Ascot. The latter of those runs being a bit more promising as he was staying on at the finish. So again, he looks like a horse who's probably in need of a bit more of a trip these days, which you'll get in the Coral Cup. And Gary Moore, we know he's quite a bullish character at the best of times, but his comments about Botox have been interesting. I mean, in recent stable tour, he said he's purposely been trained for the Coral Cup at Cheltenham. He won't have another run before. He's very happy with the way he is, and he couldn't be in a better place. So things like that, obviously, you've got to take him with a pinch of salt, especially from Gary Moore, who does like to get somewhat ahead of himself. But to know it's the target and to know it's been the plan for some time, he'll be coming back off nearly a 2-month break, which again, his record fresh is quite good, so that wouldn't be no negative. So given they've had this race in mind for some time, everything seems to be set up for quite a good run. And his course form, I think people will catch on to that on the day. And I can definitely see him going off way short than 20-1, maybe around the 12-1 mark. So at the moment, I think 20-1 on Botox is a fair bet.
Yeah, no, I watched a video the other day, and Gary Moore was talking this horse up quite a bit for the Coral Cup. So yeah, no, I definitely see the angle. And again, you're going to have a very good value play, no doubt. I'm going to butt heads with you again in the plate. Who did you pick? Conflated for the plate, wasn't it for you?
Yeah, before the weights came out.
For me, I've got a 16-1 shot here. One thing, if you look through my book of bets, that you'll notice is I really do sort of target horses who have good course form and festival form. So, you know, you've got St. Calvados, he's had 3 runs at the festival, Epatante, champion hurdle winner, Paisley, Stayers hurdle winner. You get the gist. So for me, Spirit of the Games, I've become really sweet on this horse for the plate. I'm pretty certain he's been laid out for this race, despite now qualifying for the per temps, which is the one doubt, which is why we will go non-runner, no bet. His festival form, I'll read it out to you. He was 5th in the county 3 years ago. He was 3rd in this race 2 years ago off 147, beaten 3 lengths. He was 6th in this race last year off 149, beaten 5 lengths. Now he comes here off a mark of 145. This is his lowest ever mark over fences. His course form is absolutely outstanding. It reads 4-5, 3-3, pulled up, 2-2, 6-2. And those aren't bad races either. They tend to be big field, grade 3 handicaps, like the, I can't remember the one off the top of my head now, the Paddypower Gold Cup or the Caspian Cup, Paddypower Gold Cup, I think is the one. I've taken a lot of positives from his runs this year. He was 2nd in the Paddypower Gold Cup to Cool Cody, who's now rated £6 higher. That means that the horse definitely hasn't lost any ability. He was off an unchanged mark. He didn't look to stay 3 miles. Both of those starts, he had cheek pieces on. He came back from that poor run, came back from a break and had another poor run, unfortunately, but bounced back to form in that per temps qualified to finish 2nd. Now, he didn't have cheek pieces on for either of those 2 starts. So I reckon they're going to reach for the cheek pieces, which would eke out some improvements. They're also going to return to Cheltenham off, obviously, as I said, a career low mark of offences, which is also going to help him out a lot. And I think if they book Harry Stoughton on the ride as well, I think he could cut off a lot shorter price. Yeah, providing they don't go to that attempts, I'm pretty confident this horse is going to run a massive race.
So let me just get this straight, right? So you criticised I Right for just probably being more of a place prospect, and you're giving me Spirit of the Games.
Well, I Right has been placing a lot this season. I Right has been placing a lot this season, and he's.
Can you tell me when Spirit of the Games' last win was?
Never. I'm not sure.
It was back in October 2018. That was a 4-runner race. This horse cannot win. He doesn't win. And also, he might go for the Patems, where he's £4 lower over hurdles. And that's also a potential. So there would be 2 big doubts for me. I do think the plate's quite a weak race. I'm disappointed in it because I thought a lot of the novices would go here, given the fact there's no novice handicap chase this year. And it doesn't seem to be the case too much. But Spirit of the Games, mate, he's a He's a rogue.
Certainty.
He might like Cheltenham, but he doesn't like it enough to get his head in front.
I think he's gonna.
Sure.
I think he's gonna run a huge race. I really do. I was gonna say only beaten 3 lengths 2 years ago, and then only beaten 5 lengths the year afterwards. Obviously off this lower mark, £4 lower than last year.
He could run off 130. He wouldn't win. It's not about the mark.
Find a way to get
not
himself
about
beat.
The mark.
I was writing this up down, and I tell you what, I really sold myself on him.
Clearly.
So,
I hope I've talked you out of it.
No, I'm going to go back in again.
Old.
That's
only maybe.
That's it. That's the book of bets. We can't do any more. We can't change it. As I said, we had a little surprise. Not a surprise. We had a little something we wanted to go for. We wanted to do a combined lucky 15, and then whatever winnings we get from it, we'll just donate to some good cause, which we'll decide a bit closer to the time, providing we get a return. I assumed that you'd be going for some double figure odds horses, so I followed you in on that route. So my 2 picks for the combined lucky 15 is going to be St. Calvados and the Ryanair, who I think is got a really good chance, and Kilfillan Cross in the Kim Muir.
My old friend.
Your old friend. He's obviously placed in the race the last 2 years. I think I messaged Henry Oliver the other week and said, how's he getting on? He obviously hasn't had the best of seasons. He said he's been targeted for the Kim Muir. He really comes alive in the spring. We're happy with where he's at right now. And I think he's got a really good chance of picking up a place at least.
Oh, Kilfillan Cross, you little heartbreaker. Yeah, he was. It was one of mine last year. Jeez, I thought I was in for a good one there, but he's another one who he just can't win. I can see him placing though. Definitely, he just needs to squeeze in off 135. It might be a bit touch and go in a Kim Muir if he gets in off that. But yeah, so I'm going with Right in the Ultima. Again, I just can't see him not running a good race. I think Harriet Graham tweeted about something today that he did a piece of work, maybe at Kelso, I think it might have been. Looks like Cheltenham is the aim, which I'm happy for. And obviously the market moves have been in his favour recently as well. He's come in from 20s to 12s in the last couple of days. And the other one, this isn't a double figure price, but I just can't get away from him, maybe because of the market move that came last week, and that's Gentleman de May. I'd be so disappointed that this horse can't be better than 139 in time. I'm just getting Sir de Champ vibes off him. I'm really hopeful.
Oh, well, that's it. That's the show. We've got no more. Got no more to say. I think I can have a beer.
Thank God for that.
Yeah, no, honestly.
I'll give a shot.
Mate, this is going to be a good one. Please check us both out on Twitter at Racing Willo and at Over and Clear. I should know that. I've followed you long enough.
You really should know that.
And we'll be updating throughout the week with how we're going. And also, if you did want to know who I'm betting on, I'm going to be bringing out a race by race guide every single day throughout the Cheltenham Festival. So, if you're not sick of me, feel free to check them out. Follow me through the festival, or, pick and choose, or just laugh. Who knows?
I'll say laugh at you through the festival.
Willing to stick my neck on the line. All right, that's going to wrap it up. Episode 10. We'll see you guys after the festival, where I imagine we need to do some sort of roundup if it wasn't too horrifying. So yeah, we'll catch you there.
I mean, so you might or might not see me. I might. If it's gone really well, you'll see me on a far off island spending my winning. If it's gone really badly, you'll never hear from me again. So thank you all for listening, and I may or may not ever see you again. Thank you.